Connecting community, creating impact. This is the Chamber Link.
Good morning and welcome back to the Chamber Link. I'm Katherine Grindberg, Executive Vice President at the Chamber of Commerce, Fargo, Morad, West Fargo, all the surrounding area, and excited to be here talking about a topic that I'm just familiar enough to be dangerous, but I have the experts in the room, so we're going to hear a lot about the topic of something that will be facing Fargo voters this June, something very important to the region, which is the proposed infrastructure sales tax in Fargo. This measure has generated significant discussion across the region. Business leaders, candidates, citizens alike have been talking about this because it touches on the future of our city, the streets, the public safety, the flood protection, all of these different things, making it such an important conversation and why we're digging into it today. So today I'm joined by Cale Dunwoody, our Vice President of Public Policy here at the Chamber, as well as Tami Norgard and John Gunkelman, who are co-chairs of the Fargo Forward Coalition, who is supporting this effort. So together we'll talk through the history behind the proposal, some of the facts surrounding the measure, and what realities it could mean for the future of Fargo. So we'll jump right in. Thank you all for joining me today. We're going to jump right into it about what this is all about. People have heard it, maybe on the title of it, but I want to uncover what does it mean. So, Cale, maybe I'll start with you on, can you give listeners a high-level overview of what this infrastructure sales tax proposal actually is?
Yeah, for sure. Well, thank you, Catherine, for having us on. This is something that's really important to the future of our community. Back in 2006, Mayor Bruce Furness at the time and a group of commissioners really looked forward and had a vision for how they could improve infrastructure across the community. And so they had brought this question of the penny sales tax, the penny infrastructure sales tax, to the citizens of Fargo and said, hey, this will help reduce some of the costs on the residents themselves for infrastructure, but then it also will allow us to continue to improve infrastructure. And so again, back in 2006, Mayor Bruce Furness had this vision for the future of Fargo and its infrastructure. And really, over the last 20 years, it's been working fantastic, improving a lot of the different infrastructure across the community that we utilize every day. But not only the residents of Fargo, but visitors, employees, whatever it may be, are utilizing this infrastructure. And really, it's highlighting a couple of things. It's highlighting and funding streets, water treatment and mains, wastewater treatment and sewer lines, flood and drought protection, and so. This single penny goes a long ways to, not only just improving but maintaining our infrastructure across the community. And so, this sales tax is set to expire in 2028. And so, how the chamber got involved in this was, we are intimately involved in a lot of things that have to deal with not only just business issues but community-wide issues, flood protection, drought protection. Because we really think that high-quality infrastructure makes high-quality communities, and high-quality communities build high-quality businesses, and it's everything, is kind of symbiotic when it comes to our community. And so we were approached by the mayor and others and said, hey, this is a really important initiative, and we need to make sure we extend this. And we had a lot of business leaders and members of ours say, hey, this is really important. We need to step up and make sure we can extend this for another 20 years. And so right now the chamber is partnering with a lot of different business organizations to help support this Fargo Forward Coalition.
Awesome. Thank you. And I think, I don't think you or I were here in 2006 when it was first passed, Cale, but we've enjoyed the benefits of it. And so to your point, hearing from members the last several months about the importance of it, and understanding what it's funded has been important. So we'll jump into that in a little bit. But I want to clarify. So it is a sales tax. So this is 1 cent sales tax on anything. So even in people that aren't in this community that come and use it, it's not on just the backs of the residents. It's not it's not an increase in a tax. Is that correct?
Correct. This is an extension of an existing sales tax, and it's 1%. And actually, the city of Fargo, and I don't have the exact number off the top of my head, but there are sales tax caps. And so if you buy something very large, they'll only collect up to a certain amount of sales tax, which is a nice thing. And so overall, this sales tax, like you had mentioned, isn't just from the citizens of Fargo. It's from everybody that's working, playing, visiting, whatever it may be in Fargo, helps contribute because they also help contribute to the use of our roads and our infrastructure, wastewater, all those types of things. And so it's a really interesting and really unique and innovative model to fund infrastructure across our community. It's really worked well over the last 20 years.
Thank you. Yeah, and as you explain this, Cale, it sounds like a no-brainer. So I want to turn to Tami, who is our, I know in your professional career, an attorney. Can you explain a little bit your connection to this topic? And then also, since you're used to this, what is the opposition? What are we hearing from the other side of why this isn't good, and what is your rebuttal to that? I'd like to understand both sides of it.
Sure. And thank you very much, Catherine. So I'm Tami Norgard. I'm an attorney with the Vogel Law Firm. And when the city came to present to the chamber board, they were talking about the importance of the 1 cent sales tax. And I spoke up during the meeting because I've been involved with a lot of infrastructure projects and principally the Red River Valley Water Supply Project. And that's a $1.4 billion project that's going to drought-proof our region and make sure that our businesses and our residents still have water supply if we end up in a drought. And we've actually experienced that in the past. In the 1980s, when there's been a drought, the Red River didn't flow for 10 days. And there was, a significant emergency on what is our community going to do if we don't have water supply. And so that's something, I've been working on this project since 2001, so 25 years. It's under construction. It's a very expensive project. The state, fortunately, is paying 75% of this with a state cost share, which is wonderful. But that leaves a lot of money for the local communities to pay, including Fargo. Fargo is one of the biggest communities that's benefiting from the project and that is going to pay for the project. And so during this chamber meeting, I'm on the chamber board, and I spoke up saying this is a really important issue because down the road, starting in about 2034, the city of Fargo is going to be paying about $8 million a year to make sure that its water supply is drought-proof. And do we want that $8 million a year to be on the backs of just the people within the boundaries of the city of Fargo? And the answer to that is no. And it wouldn't be, because Fargo also provides water to West Fargo, Horace, Cass Rural. And so this isn't just solely a Fargo issue. This is something that the surrounding communities should be in favor of too, because this is one project, $8 million a year, that's going to be assessed is going to flow through in their water rates. And what we're looking for is something to have outside interests, people that, there's a reason people come to Fargo from outside. And this is one of the objections you hear from people that live in more, rural communities, other cities, people that come in to go to concerts, that come in for health care, that they're saying, well, why do we have to pay for your roads and your water and your sewer? And I think the answer to that is they do need to contribute to an increment of that because there's a reason that the big hospitals are here and jobs are here and good shopping and concerts and hotels and restaurants. And so, we provide, we the citizens of Fargo provide funding for all these projects for the benefit of others and the economic hub of the region. And so it's something that's not unfair to ask some of these other entities to pay for. But that's where I spoke up in the meeting. I was asked if I'd be interested in getting involved in this. And I said, certainly I would, because I'm happy to talk about it. I see the financial implications. And if we're able to buy down the costs to residents and to businesses, and I'm a business owner as well with the Vogel Law Firm, and we end up getting hit with, I was just talking to somebody about a new road and sewer and water project that's putting in new water mains right outside our building, and we're getting assessed $132,000 for that project. And think about what that would be if we didn't have, the sales tax, 1 cent sales tax contributing to that. It would be appreciably more. And so it's something that as a resident, business owner, chamber board member, I feel like this is kind of a no-brainer. The other opposition point that I'll raise is, we've heard people that are just generally, I don't like taxes. I'm going to vote no on anything that's going to tax us. I'm going to vote no. And I think that if people take that approach, it's fairly short-sighted, and they also don't understand the economics. And that's what we're here for, and that's why we formed this coalition, is to help educate people on the economics. Because the bottom line is you need water anyway. We need sewer anyway. These expenses are going to happen. And the question is, do you want to share that expense with others, or do you want to burden yourself with the whole expense? And so to flip the script a little bit here, I would say that if you vote no and say, I don't like taxes, I'm voting no on taxes, what you're really doing is you're increasing your taxes because you're going to have to pay for it one way or another as a resident of the city of Fargo. And so I think that even if you're a I don't like tax person, if you're going to protect your checkbook, the only answer is yes on this.
Perfect. Thank you, Tami. That was very helpful, and to share some of what you're hearing on the opposition as well as kind of the rebuttal of it or what you're seeing. John, I want to jump in as you talk about, knowing infrastructure. You're the man here. So one of the co-chairs of this coalition, can you talk a little bit about how you found yourself at this table here helping out with this, and maybe the importance of infrastructure? What's the need? What's the why now? Why do we need to continue this moving forward?
I think as we've gotten into this and we realize that this raises about $30 million a year. And over the course of the 20 years, approximately the 20 years, it's raised over $600 million. That money, if it hadn't come from this sales tax, would have come from another source. And the three sources that we keep talking about that it would affect is your sewer, water rates, along with your special assessments. And if there's one thing, I've been a builder my whole life, and if there's one topic that comes up no matter where you are, is special assessments. And particularly in the core neighborhoods, as most of you will see shortly here, when the project crosses University Drive on 32nd Avenue, that's an infrastructure project. And those projects need to be done, and the funding will come from somewhere. And this sales tax helps provide all that. That $30 million a year goes to infrastructure projects along with the other projects that have been mentioned. And, the estimates are is that our water rates would possibly go up 26%. Our sewer rates would go up probably 46% if we didn't have this funding. So the idea, the reason I think most of us say it's a no-brainer is that the people that do come to Fargo, and we are a regional hub, they use our streets, they use all of our facilities, and the idea that half of this is raised by them coming into town is sort of a no-brainer to the rest of us for saving our tax dollars and keeping our special assessments low, which also helps in the core neighborhoods, keeping people in their homes.
Absolutely. No, that's great. I appreciate you sharing some of that. We are going to head to a break right now, and when we come back, John, we're going to talk further about what infrastructure means, since that can be an elusive term for some of us, as well as the competition around the area and what other rates look like for sales tax. So stick with us. Thanks for sticking with us. Welcome back to the Chamber Link. This is Katherine Grindberg, Executive Vice President at the Chamber. I have with me Cale Dunwoody, Tami Norgard, and John Gunkelman talking here about the Fargo proposal for sales tax, infrastructure sales tax that will be on the June ballot. So we're talking a little bit about what this means for Fargo residents as well as the surrounding communities, how this would impact you as a taxpayer, and really kind of talking through some of the opposition, what we're hearing, as well as why this makes sense for Fargo moving forward. So jumping back into the conversation, I know we talked about a little bit about infrastructure and the opposition. I want to understand, John, since this isn't a new tax, this is a continuation of sales tax that we've had for 20 years. Can you talk a little bit about some of the projects, some of the things that were completed with that funding that you mentioned earlier?
Well, currently, this will go towards streets, the water treatment facility, the wastewater treatment facility, and a little bit towards flood protection. And as most of you will remember, I think, is that we've updated our water plant in recent years, and I think we probably have some of the best water around. And we've also had a major expansion of our sewer treatment plant, which allows us also to now we take sewage from the West Fargo area and Horace area, and that enabled us to do a little bit of economy of scale by taking those projects on. And again, also on the water, we're a regional water supplier. As you know, this time of the year, it's pothole season, and that's part of the infrastructure. and make, just so everybody understands, this does not fund new developments. This is basically keeping what we might call the core city or the existing footprint of the city. This keeps that infrastructure in good shape. And just to reiterate, when people talk about, okay, our water and sewer rates that we happen to pay in Fargo-Moorhead, our water rates are some of the lowest in the area. We are competitive with Mandan, Fergus Falls, Minot, Aberdeen. They're actually higher than us. So we've got a great water rate, and our sewage rate is some of the lowest in the whole area for our sewage that we pay. So those are the rates that would get affected if we didn't have that money. Those rates would have to be increased to maintain the water treatment plant and also the sewage treatment plant.
And maybe, Catherine, I'll just kind of continue on that a little bit too, because to the point that John was making is, say you're in, one of the core neighborhoods and you have infrastructure because, you've lived there for 20 years or whatever it may be, is that infrastructure that you can't necessarily see, the water lines, the sewer lines, things like that, they continue need to be maintained. And I think that's one of the biggest things is how are we, and Tami does a great job talking about this, is we're not, overbuilding, we're not, having the best of the best. We're trying to maintain a lot of the infrastructure that's been there for years. And to the point is those costs, when that breaks, those costs come, no matter what. And so, for instance, a special assessment, if a sewer line breaks in front of your house, you're going to get special assessed for that because it's a project that has to happen. You have to be able to flush your toilet. This really helps buy that down a little bit, quite significantly, actually. And so that way the residents that are, being affected by that breakage or, that maintenance project don't have to bear the full burden of that solely. It can be spread around to, again, to residents, or other residents or shoppers or visitors or whatever it may be across our community. And so this is a sales tax that, that has had projects touch across the entire community. The city did a nice job showing a map when they were presenting this to the city commission for approval to be placed on the ballot, and the whole map lit up of projects that were just across the entire community and what this has touched when it comes to streets or water or sewer or whatever it may be. And so there's a mile-long list of projects that could be talked about. But I think when John brings up the water facility, we have some of the best water. When listening to those folks at the city talk about how hard it is to get the Red River Valley water to be as good as it is, I mean, there's a lot of process that has to go through that, and that process comes at an expense. And that's where the economy of scale comes in when we're sharing it regionally. All these things stacked on top of each other, the penny sales tax, the regionalization, all culminate together to make these rates so affordable for our region that if one kind of falls off the plate, then the house of cards continues to fall down. And so it's really critical that we keep this leg of that stool on there to keep it balanced and keep it affordable.
One thing I'll point out too, I don't want the perception out there to be that, oh, well, the city is just like overly aggressive in switching out its infrastructure too in the core neighborhoods. Giving you an example of, I said, that we were getting assessed a special assessment of $132,000 at our business to replace water lines. Well, in front of our building 3.5 years ago, there's an old water main that was over 80 years old that burst, and it filled the basements of neighboring properties. And that's not covered by insurance. The city's insurance doesn't cover it for these neighbors. And so they're having to carry that tax themselves to spend their own money to fix this water damage caused by 80-year-old water lines. Okay, 3.5 years later, the city is finally coming up and replacing that water line. And I share that only to say it's needed, and the city's not being overly aggressive moving forward with projects that are not needed. In fact, I think it probably should have been done a while ago, to avoid these issues. But I think that's very relevant. We need that sales tax to be able to afford to continue to upgrade our infrastructure.
Yeah, that's all very helpful. You touched on a lot of the questions actually that I had and was going to ask. So explaining a little bit about what that infrastructure means is very helpful, and that it sounds like it's some of the stuff that we've come to expect, like water lines that are maintained and those sorts of things, but that it's not a guarantee without further funding if we don't continue this sales tax revenue. So that's helpful to understand, and really that, it's not an option of just not doing it. It would have to be finding another funding mechanism, because these aren't things that, were luxuries. They're really necessities, like water lines, sewer, drought protection, flood protection, those sorts of things. We do have to run to a break, but when we come back, I know Cale has something to share with us, and I wanted to talk a little bit more about the surrounding areas and competition, and then we're going to get into general, like, when is the election and all those things. So stick with us, and we'll be back shortly. Welcome back to the Chamber Link. I'm your host today, Katherine Grindberg with the Chamber. I have with me Cale Dunwoody with the Chamber, as well as two of the co-chairs for the Fargo Forward Coalition, which are John Gunkelman and Tami Norgard, joining us today talking about the infrastructure sales tax for Fargo that will be on the ballot this June. We just had a great conversation about what infrastructure is, some examples of what this has already paid for in the last 20 years since it was approved in 2006. This would be an extension of that sales tax, kind of talking about that some of the things that this funds, or most of the things, are not, luxuries. These are very much maintaining our infrastructure, kind of the things we've come to expect, especially those of us that haven't been here for the full 20 years that this has been around. And so it's not really an option of what happens, if this doesn't pass, of just not doing these projects. It would be finding another funding mechanism for those projects. So thank you to the guests that have already gone through all those details. I do want to talk a little bit about the surrounding communities where their sales tax are at as we think about competition and what that means for businesses that are doing sales here in the Fargo area. Are we proportionate to the surrounding areas? Are we going to be way above if we continue this 1 cent sales tax? Tami, can you shed a little bit of light around that topic?
Sure. I'll start out by saying, the current rate that you're paying right now is 7.75% for sales tax for any purchases within the city up to a limit. And it's kind of important to understand where that comes from and what that is. And there is a base sales tax that is assessed that's 5%, that's by the state of North Dakota. So nothing ever changes with that. Everybody has to assess 5% for the state of North Dakota in that. And then Cass County adds 0.5%, so 0.5%. And so the city of Fargo's portion is 2.25. And of that, we're talking about 1%. And so the question is, if it did expire, it would go from 7.75 down to 6.75. And of that 7.75, 1% has been identified for the Fargo diversion. And that is going to be continuing till 2084. And then 0.25 is for public safety, for your police and firefighters. So currently 7.75. If you look at the surrounding communities, West Fargo is at 8%. And so, are we, we're not high. We're not out of the ordinary. If you look at Moorhead, there's 7.875. Bismarck is 8%. Grand Forks is 7.25%. So really, Fargo is right there in the sweet spot. We're not talking about encouraging the percentage at all. It's the same percentage as it was 20 years ago. And so we really think that it's fair, it's equitable, it's reasonable, it's in the ballpark for how generally cities fund the requirements that they have for infrastructure. And so that's where we just don't see it as being a really heavy lift.
That's really helpful for someone like me that hasn't paid attention exactly to the different sales tax in the region. It sounds like you said, we're right in that ballpark and certainly competitive with surrounding communities. So that's great to hear that would maintain. As we're talking numbers, John, question for you over there. Who ends up paying for this? What is the radius that we look at for helping fund this, since we've really made a point that this isn't on the backs of just the Fargo residents, even though it's a Fargo ballot measure, it really is a sales tax, so it's funded by all of those that visit and shop here. Can you talk about what that number looks like?
What people don't realize, being a regional hub, the 50-mile radius that we draw from right now is about 330,000 people. And if you go out 100 miles, which would take you to Jamestown, Park Rapids, past Grand Forks and to the South Dakota area. That brings our total to over 700,000 people that we have the ability to, that visit Fargo, spend their money in Fargo, and help us pay the sales tax.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think the other thing that we haven't mentioned about this sales tax, it's not on groceries, diapers, or prescription drugs. So it's not on what you might say the daily necessities. And there is a cap on it. Cale started to talk about that. I think it's little over $2,500. So if you're buying a new vehicle or a major purchase of some sort, there is a cap on it. So it's not really penalize you on a major purchase. So
That makes a lot of sense and helpful to understand that radius and that we're talking over 700,000 people that can help contribute to this then that already come here for our great, as you mentioned, Tami, our great hospitals that we have for entertainment, the mall, whatever they're coming here for and are already spending their money here, along with using our roads, the enjoying the fact that we have water and not too much of it, all of these sorts of things. So that's helpful to understand why it's important for others to help pay. Cale, I want to move over to you for those that are really interested in this conversation and want to learn more, or maybe haven't gotten all their questions answered from what the three of you have shared today. Where can people go to learn more? And then maybe just overall, if someone's just tuning in, give me the soundbite of what this infrastructure sales tax is and what you want them to walk away knowing.
Yeah. If you want to learn more, FargoPennyTax.com is the coalition website where it highlights some of the data that we talked about here. The city of Fargo has put together some great data as well when it comes to the actual costs to residents if this were not to pass. And so FargoPennyTax.com is a great resource to get more informed on this. Then, for a soundbite, what I would say is this is just one of those opportunities, again, as Tami had mentioned, it might seem like, hey, you want to lower taxes, vote no on this. Well, it's actually the inverse. This is an opportunity to lower your taxes by saying yes to the penny tax. And so I would encourage folks that are listening to really look at this really critically and not just take their gut reaction of, hey, this is a tax. This is a tax continuation. This isn't a new tax. This isn't something that will be increasing our sales tax rate. This is a continuation to support quality infrastructure, necessary infrastructure across our community, so that way the city of Fargo and its residents don't have to bear the full cost of that. We don't have to pick up the full paycheck or the full the bill for these infrastructure projects. And so I would just encourage folks, if they're interested, look at FargoPennyTax.com. And then get out to vote on June 9th and make sure you check that little yes box on the ballot. So,
one thing I'd like to point out too is some of the specifics of what would happen if you vote no, if this doesn't pass. Because we've talked about, your rates are going to go up, but we actually have some data on how much your rates will go up. And so if you look at the monthly water bill on average for Fargo, the average monthly water bill, the assessment rate, $43. John had previously said it's pretty competitive. It's pretty low, around the region. But that $43, if we don't have the penny tax, is going to turn into $65. And that's the data that they've identified without the sales tax. And then if you look at the wastewater, the monthly wastewater charges that the city of Fargo assesses to its residents and businesses, it's $25 for wastewater with the sales tax right now. And if that is to go away, you're going to be looking at $43. So it's about, $20 increase for both water and also $20 increase for wastewater. So we're looking at $40 a month overall. So we've got hard data on what that impact is going to be.
Yeah, and I think just to double down on that as well is I'm just looking at some of the data around those road reconstruction projects. Lilac Lane was one of them that the city of Fargo did. It would have cost on average $29,000 per resident around that area for that road reconstruction project. This capped it at $5,630. And so really this is an affordability factor as well. residents can avoid increased unexpected costs from special assessments by voting yes on this. They can keep their utility rates low, really saving hundreds, if not thousands of dollars annually by voting yes on this single penny tax.
That's great. I appreciate you all bringing the data and the numbers behind it. That's really helpful when someone like myself is looking at how do we vote on some of these things. To know the data and numbers behind it is very helpful. So thank you for that. Speaking of voting, I know, Cale, you just put in a plug of the date, but we're going to go to one more break here. And when we come back, we're going to talk about when is this election so that people can get it on their calendars if it's not already, as well as where can you expect to vote and maybe learn more about the candidates and other things that are on the ballot. So stay with us one more time. Welcome back to the Chamber Link. I'm Katherine Grindberg with our guests Cale Dunwoody, Tami Norgard, and John Gunkelman talking today about the proposed sales infrastructure tax for Fargo and what it means for residents, for the future, for the infrastructure of our region that we so enjoy. And in this last segment, I want to take a minute to talk about when the election is, where you can expect to see this ballot specifically on that, this measure on that ballot when you walk into the ballot box, as well as overall the importance of voting, getting civically engaged, those sorts of things. So we have about 10 minutes left to talk about that. John, maybe I'll start with you of where they can expect this on the ballot. Sounds like measure number 1. Can you read off what that title is so people know what to expect?
Yes, it appears to be on the last page of the ballot, and it's Fargo City Measure No. 1 Infrastructure Sales Tax.
Perfect.
And it's you got a yes or no vote on it at the bottom. And yes means you approve the measure as summarized up above.
Perfect. So there's a small summary on there, but again, if you want to know more information, specifically the data that's been shared today, fargopennytax.com will share more information if you're looking for some of the data details behind it, because those will not be obviously on the ballot itself. Cale, when are we voting? When is this on the ballot?
Yeah, the June 9th election is the primary election in North Dakota, where we are voting for a lot of different things. This is, for residents of Fargo, you have a lot of different things that they're voting for. You have mayor, commission, school board, park board, things like that. In addition to this, but there's a huge ballot that we have to look at, and this is kind of towards the end of that ballot. But June 9th is election day for the state of North Dakota. In Cass County specifically, you can early vote the week before, which is a great opportunity. If you can't make it over on Tuesday, June 9th, but you can make it over there the week before, you can swing over the ballot box, get that filled out, and get that submitted. And they have great times, so that way if you're at work, you can swing over after work, or you're on your lunch break or whatever it may be. So there's a lot of great opportunities. And the other thing about Cass County is you can vote at any of the voting locations if you're a resident of Cass County. And so there's a whole list of locations from the Fargo Dome, everywhere across the entire city of Fargo. And any resident of Cass County can go over there and vote. And so that's really important to make sure you make a plan to vote, whether that be absentee ballot, where you're getting it in the mail and filling that out and sending it back in, going over there the week before, going over the ballot box the week before and casting your ballot, or going on June 9th. Again, there's a lot of different things on the ballot, a lot of important things on the ballot, and we can dive a little bit into that if you want. But just really encourage folks to make a plan to vote this June election.
Yeah, and I think you can always ask to have absentee ballots sent to you as well, like for all elections. And my schedule always changes. I may be in town, I may be gone, I may have meetings, have a full day booked. And sometimes I think, darn it, I've got to get out and vote, and trying to fit that in gets difficult. And so that's something I do just to avoid having the hassle, is I check the box saying, send me every election by absentee, because then there's no excuse. And I've got kids that are not in the area, if your kids are in college somewhere, check the box for them too. And so that they can also vote absentee.
Yeah. Sounds like civic engagement is something you're passionate about, Tami, making a priority to go vote.
Right.
The Chamber has our Center for Civic Engagement that's become a staple this last year and has really been making big moves. Can you talk a little bit, since you're on the board, can you talk about the Center for Civic Engagement? And then I'll flip to Cale to talk specifically about the portion of it about the election.
Sure. We really started engaging in trying to increase civic engagement when term limits passed at the legislature, and we're realizing that, a third of the legislators are going to get turned over in 2028. And to be frank, it's difficult to find people that are willing to step up into an elected position, like a legislative position. Some people just don't want to be putting themselves out there, feeling like they could be criticized for something. A lot of people, I think, that are very smart, wonderful business type people would say, I don't have the time. I can't take off 4 months every other year to go serve my community at the legislature, and that's, reasonable as well. But in North Dakota, we have a small population and we have a lot of positions to fill. And so if you look at our elected offices in North Dakota, 1 in 45 of our residents of North Dakota have to fill an elected position, which is pretty crazy when you think about it. I think Minnesota's well over 250, 1 every 250 people. North Dakota's 1 in 45. And if you actually include things that are appointed boards, you're looking at 1 in 13 people. And so we have a heavy burden here in North Dakota of people that need to step up and help lead your community, whether it's park board, whether it's some advisory committee. It's something that we really encourage. And because we have so much difficulty finding people to be willing to step up, the Chamber initiated the Center for Civic Engagement, where we are actually doing some, we're encouraging people to run for election. We're doing we did Civics on Tap. Like, would you like to be a legislator? Would you like to learn more about being a legislator? Come to listen to how to run a campaign, what it costs, how to raise money, what it means, how to fill out the forms. It doesn't matter what party you are. We want to encourage people to run for election. And particularly the Chamber is saying we want people that are business-minded, that will support progress in our communities across the state. And we're not just looking at Fargo, West Fargo, Horace, this area. We're encouraging people all across the state because we want great leaders across the state that are going to be sitting in Bismarck making good decisions that affect how we do business every day in our communities. And so that's kind of my plug for getting involved. If you've thought about getting involved and you're kind of shy about putting your name in there and just want to learn a little bit more about it, talk to any of us. Call the Chamber, say you'd like more information, attend some of these meetings, and we will be happy to provide that information and encouragement to show you the ropes on how you can get from point A to point B.
Great. Yeah, it's a very exciting initiative. I know Cale and I, as well as the team, are very excited for this. It's taken off over the last year, a nonpartisan effort where, like you said, it's come to the table, learn more about the civic process. And I like the way Cale always talks about it, too, of moving one kind of rung up the ladder. So whether you've never voted, making a plan to vote this year. Let's get you there. Maybe you voted, but you've never gotten involved in advocacy. Let's get you there where you can talk to your legislators about an issue that matters. Or if you're there, maybe you're ready to take the next step about serving, whether it's on the legislative level or maybe it's something back closer to home here too. So there's so many opportunities to get involved. I think we've got over 60 positions that are on the ballot just this year in our region. So like you said, the ballot will have a lot packed into it. So speaking of that, Cale, one of the programs out of the Center for Civic Engagement is Vote FMWF, and I know the Chamber has been intentional about not endorsing candidates, however, educating on that. So though we've taken a position with this measure, the candidates themselves, we are nonpartisan, and we have not taken a position, but we have education materials, right? So can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, for sure. Well, just to be clear, the Center for Civic Engagement is not a part of this ballot measure, the Vote Yes campaign. That is kind of the public policy hat that I have to wear at the Chamber. Our Center for Civic Engagement, as you said, is really providing resources in a nonpartisan manner to residents, whether they be first-time voters or be an experienced voter at the ballot box, and just having that one-stop shop where folks can come and see what's going to be on their ballot, whether it be a member of Congress or a member of the school board. There's going to be a profile and information on them that you can go to votefmwf.org, whether you're sitting at home before election day or you're sitting in the ballot box looking at your ballot and you're like, gosh, who is that again? I can't remember which way they lean or which way they stand on this one issue I'm really particular about. And so you can jump onto votefmwf.com or .org. Either one works. And really look at who's up for election and see the differences between candidates. We've been able to do candidate profiles that have videos of each candidate. So each candidate was provided an opportunity to either send us a video or our team created videos for them. They came into our office and we shot videos for them and published them. And so that's going to be the Vote FMWF platform is going to be launched here later this afternoon. We're going to officially launch it just a couple weeks before the election as people are starting to fill out their ballots and start making a plan. It's going to have all the candidates on there. It's going to have information about how to vote, where to vote, when to vote, all those great things, voter eligibility. And so just would encourage folks to go to votefmwf.org to see what's on their ballot and get more engaged. So that way everyone can walk into that ballot box and feel informed this June election.
Awesome. Thank you, Cale, for sharing about that. I know we're out of time, but again, mark your calendars for June 9th. Check out votefmwf.org. Or if you want to hear more about the issue that we specifically talked about today, fargopennytax.com has more information. Thank you, Cale, Tami, and John, for joining us. We'll see you next time on the Chamber Link.